the whole word is a verb, right?
Yes.
It's a Vayekhas verb, exactly as we've seen. Vatechel kol avodat mishkan oel moed, which we had before, and then we had Vayasu b'nei Yisrael. All of these are Vayekhas verbs, right? So this is a Vayekhas verb. Vayekhas ha'anan et oel moed, and again, according to the verb, subject, object. Okay, regular word order of the biblical Hebrew narrative, verb, subject, object. You can see that the subject here has the definite article, that is he'anan, the cloud. What did a cloud do? In English, we go subject, verb, object. The cloud covered. What did it cover? What's the object of the action of covering? Et, definite direct object marker, oil moed. Okay, very, very straightforward, short sentence as expected from biblical narrative. Okay, Vayekhas ha'anan et oel moed. We can talk about the root of Vayekhas being kaf samech and yod or hey. Again, we've talked about that with kaf lamed hey, which we had in the previous slide. And again, with the shorter form, the Vayekhas form takes the apocopated, takes the shorter form, Vayekhas. So the last, we don't see the third root letter. We see the Va of the Vayekhas with a patach, and then the Yod, Vayekhas. Okay, the Yod is of the prefix conjugation, like the Yiktol and the Vayekhas, and the Va is of the vav conversive or vav at the beginning, Vayekhas in this case, Vayekhas ha'anan et oel moed. Okay, so we dealt away with the first sentence here. How about the second sentence? What is the verb in the second sentence?
This one, to fill. Maleh.
Maleh, very good. Maleh is the verb, but it's a different kind of verb. Right? What kind of a verb is maleh? As opposed to the Vayekhas being Piel, third person masculine singular, Vayekhas of kaf, samech, and yod. How about maleh?
Maleh is just kal, isn't it?
First of all, it's kal. The binyan is kal, right? That is correct. However, maleh is not the regular third person masculine singular kal qatal. It is a third person masculine singular kal qatal.
Because it has the aleph on the end, it's irregular a bit.
So it's not just the aleph, because, for instance, Bereshit bara Elohim. So you can see we have the aleph at the end, and we have an a vowel yet following the second root letter. However, maleh, as you can see, takes the a vowel, as opposed to Bereshit bara Elohim. So bara is third person masculine singular kal qatal, and yet it takes the a sound following the second root letter, while maleh takes the a vowel. Why would maleh take the a vowel and bara take the a vowel, Ulrike?
Is it a sign of state
Right.
of being?
So maleh is a verb, is by nature a different action than bara, right? Because bara, and we could have talked about other examples, but bara is an action verb. It's by nature more transitive, more finitive. Okay, God created something. Okay, maleh, just a second. Maleh could be a description of a state of being. So not necessarily dynamic, not necessarily active, but more stative in nature, in the nature of the verb. Okay, can you see how full is not the same as doing. Okay. In this case, yes, it is more transitive. It is used in a more transitive way. So maybe even the cloud covered and the presence of the Lord filled the tabernacle, or was continuously fulfilling the tabernacle. So here it is used more like in a verb way. But being that the action itself is not as dynamic
It's
as
an
other
ongoing
actions.
action.
Come again?
It's an ongoing action.
In this case,
Continue.
yes. In this case, yes. But what I'm trying to stress out is that full or filling has this idea of a stative. It can describe a state of being rather than an action. Okay, I can become more heavy, or I am heavy. I am full, or I can become full. I can fill something, but being full is a state of being. There is no state of being creating. Okay, so that's the verbs that may describe a state of being may take the a or the o vowel. Okay, so kevod Adonai maleh et hamishkan here. Yes, I think it's fair to describe this as an action, but the verb itself could be more stative. Next verse. Thank you, Jackie. Next one, guys. Yeah, Jackie, do you have a question? I see your hand is up.
No, I was trying to
Okay.
put it down.
Okay, very good. Guys, don't be shy.
I'll do it.
Okay, right.
Ki Aman Adonai al Hamishkan Yomam Ve'esh Tihiyeh Laila Bo Le'enei Kol Beit Yisrael V'chol Mas'ehem. For the cloud of the Lord was upon the tabernacle by day, and there was fire therein by night, in the sight of all the house of Israel throughout all their journeys.
Right. This is the last verse of the book of Exodus. It really is part of the description of what's going on with the completion of the tabernacle, and how the cloud was over the tabernacle or wasn't over the tabernacle, and how it affected their journeying through the desert. But the point, I brought it because it is the last verse of the book of Exodus, which makes it important in and of itself. And I also wanted to share a very common custom in Jewish communities. What happens when we finish reading one of the books of the Torah? Whenever you finish the current book you're reading, right? We read the Torah every year. Bereshit, Shemot, Vayikra, Bemidbar, Devarim, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. And so 5 times a year, we finish reading one of the books of the Torah. When we finish reading one of the books of the Torah, okay, first of all, there is a kind of a different reading, different tone, different melody to the last part of the last verse in every Chumash, in every book of the 5 books of Moses, and I'll read it for you. Ki Hanan Adonai al Mishkan Yomam Ve'esh Tihiyeh Laila Bo. That's the regular reading, but the next part you'll see I'm reading slightly different than usual. לעיני כל בית ישראל בכל מסעיהם. Kind of a laudatory, ceremonial ending of each of these books. And then the whole community says, Chazak, Chazak, Vanishing He. Why? What does it mean? So you can see the root immediately. Chazak,
Be
Chazak.
strong, be strong.
Right,
And
be
you
strong.
strengthen.
Right. And let us all be strong. Why?
You
Because,
will be strengthened.
first of all, you're right. It is a quote. Thank God we have Maureen here. It is a quote from the books of Samuel. Chazak v'nitchazak b'ad amenu v'ad arei Eloheinu. Right. Let us be strong for our people and for the cities of our God. You're right. This is an imperative form, right? So it's be strong, and let us all be strong. So it's an imperative followed by the cohortative, nitchazek. Some communities nitchazak, following the book, the verse in the book of Samuel, but it's a variant of the same thing. So if you go to your synagogue and they finish reading the Torah, you'll hear this. לעיני כל בית ישראל בכל מעשייהם. And then the whole community says, חזק חזק ונתחזק. Why? Why do we have to say, be strong, be strong, let us all be strong? There are all kinds of explanations, but the one I like is the fact that, you might, so you won't rest on those laurels. You have to go stronger and stronger. You finish reading a book, you say, oh, now I know. Now I understand. Now I finished the book. I know everything there is to know. I know the book of Exodus. No, you have to go stronger and stronger. Okay? So whenever we finish studying a book, as I said, I learn every day from Maimonides. Whenever we finish, we immediately start again something. Same we do with the Torah. We finish the Torah, we start reading the Torah again. In every Simchat Torah, right? We finish the book of Deuteronomy, we start the book of Genesis. And every book we finish, we say, be strong, let us all be strong, let us not stop learning. So that's what we say after this verse. And that's a little bit about the context of finishing a book. Now, let's talk about the verse itself. Key, connecting it to what the preceding verses. We've talked about the various uses of key in the past weeks. Here, it's a conjunction that connected to what we've seen before. Okay, a causal conjunction. This is because, okay, the Anan Adonai, a construct chain. We've talked about construct chains before. Anan is in the construct form. Okay, the word Anan, when it is not constructed, is with a different vowel pointing. Anan Adonai al hamishkan yomam. This is a nominal sentence. Note that as opposed to English has to have a verb generally in a sentence. Here we have a sentence that is verbless. We have Anan Adonai, which is a noun, a construct chain, and serves as the subject of the sentence. And what is the predication of this sentence? The predication of the sentence is essentially an adverbial phrase that gives us the whereabouts and the time, if you will, a temporal adverbial sentence or predication of the sentence. The cloud of the Lord, okay, was, we don't have was in Hebrew, we don't need that. We have the preposition al hamishkan, over the tabernacle. Yomam. Yomam has the adverbial ending that tells us daily, during the day. In this case, in English, daily would be would kind of be distributed each day, but here during the day. Okay, so we have the time and the place where the subject would be, and we don't need a verb in Hebrew. Can you see that, guys?
Yeah.
Very good. In modern Hebrew, we would have some kind of a conjugation of the verb to be. Was, is, will be. In Hebrew, we have none. So we have to understand by the context, by the way, what is the time of the sentence? What is the tense of the sentence? Because we don't have a verb. Anan Adonai ala mishkan yomam. When I say these words, it could, without context, it could be the cloud of the Lord was over the tabernacle during the day. The cloud of the Lord is over the tabernacle during the day, or the cloud of the Lord will be over the tabernacle during the day. As long as we don't have a verb here, we don't have a tense. Obviously, now, since it's a narrative text, since we're looking back and so forth, we can translate it, and I think it's a fair translation to write was, okay? But I want you to see that in the grammar itself, we don't have that was in the Hebrew, okay? It's suggested, okay? Ve'esh tihiyeh laila bo. Very good. We have kind of a almost like poetic verse ending the book of Judges, creating this parallelism, right? Remember the concept of parallelism? Anan Adonai Esh. Okay, God is missing, but it's obvious that this is a fire from God, right? Al Hamishkan, over the tabernacle, we have bo. Again, we can do it shorter, okay, because we already have the explicit mentioning of the Mishkan. Okay. Laila, obviously contrasted with Yomam. And again, you can see the unique form of Yomam having this adverbial suffix, which is absent from the word Laila, which simply means night and is used in an adverbial way to mean during the night. Okay? I'm pulling an all, no, I'm trying to think of a noun used in such an adverbial way in English without any morphological markings. So we have yomam, which has an adverbial marking daily or during the day with the suffix, but this suffix is not by the time of biblical Hebrew. This suffix is already a frozen one. It's not like the ly in English, where I can take ly in English and I can add it to anything I want. Someone is behaving sheepishly, okay, or he did everything that is humanly possible. I add the ly quite freely in English. The suffix of kamatz followed by a mem at the end of the word is already in biblical times, already 3,000 years ago, is kind of a set suffix that we find with certain words, but it's not freely added to every word. I cannot take every word that I want and add the suffix and say, oh, now it's like ly in English. So you can see that the word Laila has the same use, but not the same morphological suffix marking that use. And here, as opposed to the first part, we have tihiyeh. Tihiyeh marking the being, okay? And again, describing this state, okay? Here, the verb is used in a kind of an iterative use, like something that happens regularly, okay? And again, in the past. So you can see the Yiktol serving to describe an iterative past situation. Not, by the way, different than modern Hebrew. Here, modern Hebrew and biblical Hebrew diverge. You cannot use the Yiktol form for modern Hebrew to describe a repeated situation or a reiterated situation, iterative past in modern Hebrew. Simply, people don't do it. Okay? Some differences between modern Hebrew and biblical Hebrew. So, creates interesting situation. I had an old uncle, my mother's uncle, he never lived in Israel, but he grew up in yeshivas, in academies in Eastern Europe, and he was very smart, super smart. By the age of 17, he was ordained as a rabbi. He was, again, super smart. Unfortunately, never had kids. He was married, but no kids. And his Hebrew was all based on the Bible and Jewish sources. What they refer to as Lushan Kodesh. Guys, do you know what Lushan Kodesh means? Lushan Kodesh is literally holy tongue, holy language, which means they kind of had Hebrew, but only of the Hebrew sources. Kind of a ability to speak, but only based on written texts. Think of like your Latin professor or your Greek professor who can speak in Latin, but again, you know it's the Latin of the written sources. So kind of a Lushan Kodesh, which was a mix of different layers of Hebrew, but he managed, communicating with people in a way that was odd for us as native modern Hebrew speakers, but was fascinating. He would say things in a way that we understood it, but it wasn't the right way to say it, He was kind of mixing different layers of Hebrew to express what he wanted, and always in kind of a source-oriented speech, which was fascinating. We loved him dearly. Unfortunately, he passed away. He had no children. So some of my kind of nephews, or second nephews, are named after him. He was like I never had a grandfather on my mother's side. He was passed away before I was born, so he was kind of a second grandfather. Anyway, so that's about my old great uncle, of blessed memory. לעיני כל ישראל בכל מסעיהם, לעיני כל בית ישראל. Again, remember we've talked about construct chains. Again, note this beautiful construct chain. To the eyes of all of the house of Israel. Okay, you can see even sight of all of the house, or all the house of Israel throughout all of their journeys. Again, English repeatedly using of would be bad practice. It's just poor style. But Hebrew uses the construct chain, and it's not that you constantly have to translate this off, but you have to understand how the construct state of the word works. So, לעיני כל בית ישראל בכל מסעיהם. Again, we have an adverb composed of the preposition and the substantive. Preposition here being the lamed, and kol bet, and the eyes of all of the house of Israel is a substantive, is a substantive. It's a noun, elaborate noun here. Okay, but and now nonetheless, and we're finishing the book of Exodus with this divine presence completing the temple.